Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thanks. And we're gonna hop over again to our next 15 minutes of intense use case discussion. We're gonna go back to Qatar right now with a use case implemented at QLM due to, or thanks to Build AI. Hi, how are you? Hi. Yeah, come on up. So Fahad is the CEO of QLM, and Sashi, we've seen your keynote this morning about Build AI. So pretty impressing technology. So coming over a little bit, I don't know if you guys would like to present some slides or you'd like us to step in.
We'll take it different now. We'll just speak about it. I applaud the previous group. The vision is amazing. That's the future, I believe, where things are going. So we can probably start about what's going on between QLM and Builder AI right now, and then the future outlook as well.
Absolutely.
On it. So I came across Builder AI. Probably you saw the presentation already, what they do. Through a Google search, looked into it more. My IT team jumped back with it. With the features that system is doing, that it's nothing comparable to what we saw in the market. And we get proposals from so many vendors who will build apps and will take ages to come back even with a price on it. So when that presentation came to me and I started fidgeting around with the system itself and saw the features it had, immediately we got the feedback or the readings from the system and what features we can add and drop and duplicate maybe something that's available in the market. With all that being aside, I picked up the phone, we called Sachin, we started talking about it after showing, the interest. And we had the same vision. We have a pool of around 200 to 250,000 members insured with QLM. And QLM is one of the companies that just focuses on medical and life insurance. So how can we get those 250,000 people and build them as a community around the insurance company? And that's something we want to start locally and then maybe replicate it within the region where we have our partners working, Kuwait, UAE, and Oman. So after a few discussions, the gamification to those members and how can they take part of something bigger, which will give us our social responsibility into promoting the wellness of the community around us, plus rewarding them for being active. But that's just the beginning. A good point that was mentioned, the harmonification of the data. So we'll get the data and how people are active and how do they live their day-to-day lives. But how does that reflect to insurance? How can we get what's the best, either in our reality, what insurance companies are there for, to calculate the risk and try to save money out of whatever claim is coming. So that approach, by having a healthier ecosystem around the company, that will fall back to reducing the claim costs. So that's the initial part where we started developing, and it's probably going to launch next month, our new revamped mobile application. I'll give it to Sachin now to speak more about it and then to the future.
Awesome. And then, I think what we've really enjoyed sort of in this partnership with QLM is, on one hand, you have a substantial carrier that, is quite diverse across the region. There's a wealth of data that we've are hoping to uncover, whether that is conversations with the brand, and over the last couple of years, it's the claims that are going through, it's the interactions that have already taken place. And I think it's unique because you have someone of scale, but someone of vision to sort of reinvent, what frontier insurance might be like and what that experience might be like. And so as we've gone through the conversations, what's been interesting for me personally has been to see both how we can triangulate data sets. So what do I mean by that? Imagine, I'm making it up, but imagine, flu season is in November. But actually, by seeing the clinicians' reports, by almost visualizing, oh my God, actually, it's not end of November now, it's the middle of November. A carrier can start to take proactive steps, whether it is to inform clinicians, to get look at people that got affected the year before, reach out to them even quicker, be really preemptive, because preemptive is usually less expensive than reactive. And then I think, sort of the conversation naturally evolved to how can we allow these customers, these members, to number one, self-serve. How can we ensure that every single conversation they have with the brand is really powerful, with a really strong NPS? And what it came down to was almost, hey, listen, we've got this first application, this is great, but actually, why don't we reinvent from the data up? What could be different? And so we're hoping to kick off on a program where it's going right the way from how can we make the call center experience really rich, so that no matter which agent you speak to, you get a stellar outcome every single time. How can we ensure that those agents actually get up to speed in days, not months? Because this is a ramp period. Call center agents are a high churn, so you're continuously spending your time training. And the other part of this is, how can we integrate the pharmacy, the clinician, the member, the brand, in this case QLM? How can we integrate all of that so that actually we've got like this really easy experience? There's not like lots of papers coming in, someone's reading some scribbled notes, someone's trying to look at a pharmacy receipt, trying to connect the dots together, because that's where the mistakes happen. And at the same time, if there is legacy, how can we use AI to really catapult forward everything from recognition of what's in that data set, but really then what's trending out of it? So I'm super excited because, one of the most important things is I love customer conversations and I love our customers' customer conversations. And so, one of the things that we're actually going to be doing is we're going to look at the last 12 months of every single conversation that QLM's had with a customer. And our hunch and our thesis is that actually out of, let's say, 100 million minutes of conversation, there's probably about 300,000 or 400,000 unique minutes. Everything else is a variation of that unique minute. And if that's the case, and we've seen this in other industries, it's usually that kind of ratio. It's 7% unique, 93% variated, but originates from the unique. What that actually tells you is actually customers are ringing up and they're speaking to QLM. And actually, they all want some things that are very similar. And if you remember from my presentation this morning, we said 80% of the features that make up most applications are the same. I actually think that applies across the board. 90% of the conversations most companies have with their customers are actually repetitive of the 10%. So I'm very excited and really wanted to thank you, Fahad, also for your leadership in this, because you have such a big operation, and to build something frontier is it's pretty epic.
Just like Sachin said, so when we look at the operation side of it, when we look at the topic of this summit, the AI impact on the insurance and value chain. So what can we take if we'll dissect that value chain? We'll have the procurement part or the underwriting, we'll have the claims, we'll have the servicing, and then we can go into the additional departments, the marketing, the finance, and so on. So it should be a closed ecosystem around all parts of that chain. But the major project that I feel it's important to me is when we come to the claims processing side, because globally, the claims processing side, billions of claims are processed on a yearly basis around the globe. The percentage of fraud year on year, it's higher than ever. So the AI will help us in probably the first, let's say, 3 checkpoints when it comes to the claim verification. or validation. So is the member valid, insured, active or inactive? Then it comes to the assessment part. And the assessment part, does it meet the limits or is he overpassing his limit? So these two steps, I believe personally we can depend 100% on an AI without having any human interference in it. But when we come to the claims education, there will always, because those are the cases that might be life-threatening, a doctor needs to be involved from our side, looking into it, validating the outcome that the AI will recommend. The fourth step, which is the important one, the fraud detection. Yes, we can depend on the human power, but when you have the system that will give you notification, will give you the flags, either if it comes through a member, through a provider, through a specific doctor, or related to a specific service, any irregular behaviors that will rise from that, I believe nothing can be or can't notify us better than a full equipped ecosystem that has a solid AI system built on it.
You know, and I think that's a really good point, and something sort of Fahad just touched on, which is this finding of anomalies. Right? Today we're relying on somebody with a great eye to find the anomaly, but actually anomalies are data driven. So, for example, if somebody had a condition X, you know, one thing you can do is you can look at sort of how does one arrive at condition X? What were the last 10 conditions someone had? Then you can look at context. What is the average demographic of someone that has this condition? And so now when you suddenly get a condition showing up for someone that doesn't fit the demographic, doesn't fit the context, you're able to reason, you know, really effectively without relying on someone who's necessarily seen those patterns before. And so there's a number of impact points with this. Number one, obviously reduces massive amounts of fraud. And the second thing is it actually reduces a lot of cost in being able to accelerate to that point of decision. And then I think the third is the customer really clearly knows what they can and they can't get away with. Look, and I've seen this in our own case where, you know, we've had a conversation with a carrier, and you know, we use a carrier in the UK, and you know, we've had a conversation with them and said this is a precondition, you know, for one of my children, and then a year in, they're like, oh no, but you know, this, and I'm like, no, we had this discussion, and luckily I make copious notes. It was on this date, on this time, and you said it was fine, and that's why we signed up. And I think another piece of this fraud is not so much fraud, but it's about delivering a really stellar customer experience. The beauty with having a system that's full ecosystem, fully integrated, is actually you never lose the conversation. So imagine being able for any agent within QLM to be able to speak to any customer, and it feels like the last conversation or the first conversation. It's always consistent. It's always built on. And whether that is your medical history, it's your policy history, it's the things you discuss, it's the exceptions you got. And this really leapfrogs the entire insurance experience, because you're also, I think, moving to a world where if you get this right, you get truly personalized insurance. So you have like these base cases and you build on these, it's like pizza. You get a base and then you add toppings on top, and you can really make it unique to you, and it's priced uniquely to you.
What, after all this conversation, which was very insightful, my question would go towards the implementation phase, and you know, after you Googling building AI, which is, by the way, a unique screening process, which we should, most of us should copy. This is a great takeaway from the conversation as well. I'm interested in, you know, the first conversations, your sensibilization, your effort in sensibilization of the carrier itself, of how your solution might work, and the potential outputs it would impact it would generate within the first 12 months. What about this conversation? How was this collaboration phase in the first place?
So I think from our perspective, we had a couple of coffees when we were sitting in the QLM office, and you know, and when I heard about QLM from the team and the first project already kicked off, and so I said I really want to meet them because I want to understand sort of what's the wider the vision. And then when I met Fahad and sort of understood his wider vision, I think the first conversation was just trying to understand, like, what are customers saying? Like, where are you seeing the issues? What kind of data do we have? How well is it structured? what's the art of the possible? And I think to me that was really important because we got a lot of data back. So I think in the first 2 meetings we weren't selling anything. We were just there to say, hey, listen, we've seen this. We think you could do this, but tell me a little bit more about this, or how is the data structured, or what kind of conversations, where do you think the issues are? And I think what that meant was we didn't go in with an answer bias. We went in with a problem bias, which I think is the right approach, because then we got to really get really under the hood of like what the art of the possible is.
I can't agree more. So like we mentioned before, once our first project kicked off, which was the mobile application, so we had the bigger vision and how to control or manage, the data we have. So with the few coffees with Sachin, I understood what is data classifications, data pools, generative AI, multi-factorial AI, so all those technicalities. But I believe, after discussing, the vision we had and what we want to do with this data and to those members, we started building the Lego pieces on top of each other and what services or models we will need to implement to achieve the final vision and the full ecosystem between that mobile application and the backend system as well.
I truly believe that you guys are a kind of solution provider that might really disrupt the way of how you collaborate with larger carriers. And this is a very slow pace moving industry. You guys are proving everybody wrong. So on the other side, you need organizations, you need carrier that listen, that are keen to interact and take the decision on moving forward together. So good luck for the future for both of you, and have a good time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sasha.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.